Trolley, the most interesting thing about it is it operated all the way through 1986 in Pennsylvania, continuous service.
So this first building here to our left, this red brick building, this is the former Southern Hotel. It's now the Entrada Apartments. It was originally built in 1906, and it's a three-story brick building, 53 rooms, was built at a cost of $26,000. And in 1908, they built this extension to it, which is 75 by 125, which added about another 20 rooms to the hotel. Now, as we move on south here, directly in front of us to the south is the former Rock Island Southwest Division Headquarters office building. And this building was constructed in 1912 at a cost of a whopping $150,000. And if you can imagine, only 6 years difference between when the hotel was built at a cost of $26,000 to the construction of the Rock Island building, which was $150,000. That's just amazing. But each office in the Rock Island building had its own separate entrance, had 9 chandeliers in each room, and the building also boasted 3 elevators and several fireproof safes, all of which are still in that building. Later in life, it was converted to apartments, but the owner was pretty much absentee and it's pretty well fallen on hard times now. So, but probably the most significant thing about this building to me is that at the time of its construction, it had installed what was termed at the time the most complete telegraph switchboard system in the world, and the Rock Island communicated throughout its railroad system from the switchboard system that was here in this building. It was quite significant at the time. Now, as we get on down the block here, there's a couple houses that I want to talk about. The first one on the corner on the right, it's going to be the Golf House, and it was built for W.I. Golf and his family in 1900, and it's a 2-story Victorian house that has 15 rooms. It was restored back to its original condition in the 1990s, and it currently serves as a bed and breakfast. And I see it is for sale, so if you want to open your own bed and breakfast, that would be an ideal building. Right here on your right, right here. Now, to our left, house down from that corner, this kind of peach-colored building where the paint is peeling real bad. Basically, they're stripping the paint from that house. And that's the former Solomon Layton house. And that house was built by the famous Oklahoma architect Solomon Layton. It's one of 3 residential homes that he built, this one being for himself. And he is most notable for building designing and building the Oklahoma State Capitol. And in El Reno, he also built the El Reno High School that we're coming up to, the Canadian County Courthouse, and the Canadian County Jail. But he's credited with building over 100 buildings in Oklahoma at the time, the 1910 through 1946. And he designed and built over 16 courthouses and over 40 public schools at the time. Now, as for the El Reno High School here, Saloon designed that in 1911. That school was constructed. The west half of the school was the first part constructed, and you can tell the difference between the west half and the later built east half by the rain gutter that goes right down the center of the building, right here to your left. You see it right there. Well, in 1921, we intended to build the second half of the school building, and we sold bonds valued at $214,000. And right after we sold the bonds, the bank that we went through went under and took all our money with it. So it was several years later when we were able to sell new bonds, but we only were able to sell $100,000 in bonds, but we were still able to complete the other part of the building. And so in 1926, the other part of the building was constructed. Now, if we turn north on Bickford Street, the first thing I want to talk about is the Onion Fried Burgers diners in El Reno. We have 3 of them. Of course, El Reno is known as the Onion Fried Burger capital of the world, and this is where onion fried hamburgers originated, right here in El Reno. And all 3 of the burger places are located here on 66, which is commonly known as Wade Street. Robert's Grill right ahead of us. On the left, the white building, that was originally called Bob's White Rock. And then 1 block to the west is Sid's Diner. It's the most well-known one. It's been on TV several times. And then 1 block to the east is Johnny's Grill. So all 3 of them do a very good job of cooking onion fried hamburgers. So if you haven't had one, take your pick. They all look good. Now, probably the most interesting thing that's happened to El Reno in quite a while is the new movie, the sequel to Twister, was filmed here in El Reno. Twisters 2, or it's more commonly known, or the official title is Twisters, was filmed right along Bickford Street that we're going along right now. And the trolley plays a role in that movie. And as the trolley is moving up Bickford Street while we're having a farmer's market, tornado comes through town and destroys downtown, the trolley, and the El Reno water tower, which in the movie is positioned on the north part of town, even though it's actually located on the west part of town. And now, fortunately for us, they didn't destroy the original trolley, or you wouldn't be able to ride it. But they made a replica of it by doing 3D imagery of this trolley. See if I can get across the highway here before the light changes. So anyway, what they did, they made a 3D image of this trolley, then they took the chassis from an RV, and they made a replica trolley out of that, and that's the trolley that you see in the movie. So they used this entire downtown area of Bickford in order to film that scene, and they had to do it about 3 times before they got enough footage to do what they needed to do. I've got to stop here just a second. In 1941, And unfortunately, in 1943, the original one burnt down, and the family rebuilt it in 1945 as the Center Theater. And they operated that theater up through 1995 when the City of El Reno bought it, restored it, and now it operates, it has live theater, music, and other vintage shows are shown in that theater. Now this new Twisters movie, if you haven't heard about it, it has come out as 27 years, almost to the day, from the original Twister movie. And of course the new one was filmed in Oklahoma City, Chickasha, Okarche, Spencer, Cashin, and then the sequence in El Reno. And some of the stuff they did, as an example, if you look to your left, this mural painted on the side of the JKN building, that was painted just for the movie, so you'll see that in the movie. As well as you'll recognize many of the other structures. The mural over here on our right, this building up here, this mural was painted originally by Charles Beecham. He was a well-known Oklahoma artist, and it depicts the evolution of El Reno and Canadian County from pre-statehood to early statehood. Then of course right here on our right also, the sandstone building right here is the Masonic Lodge. It was built in 1909, and they met on the third story, and the other two stories were rented out as office and retail. We turn the corner here, you can probably see the top of the building, that brown brick building to your left. You can see the top. You can kind of see a chimney on top of it. That's El Reno's first post office building. And prior to that post office being built, we didn't not have the post office. You would come to this barrel-shaped building, barrel-ribbed building up here just ahead of me. And you would, everybody's mail was placed in a shoebox, and you would come up here and you would just go through the shoebox to find your mail. So I guess it was based on the honor system that nobody would get somebody else's mail. And then this building this barrel-shaped building was actually built as an ice cream factory, and it's been about the first 10 years of its life as an ice cream factory, and then became an ice house, and of course more recently it's just used for storage. We cook our onion fried burger at the Onion Fried Burger Festival every year. We cook it right here in this parking lot. And of course just south of us here is Crossroads Plaza, to the south and to the right. That plaza was dedicated July 4th of 2000. And it has 4 monuments, one each for World War I, II, Korea, and Vietnam Wars. And the Doughboy stands on top of World War I museum. And it memorializes and was erected in memory, to honor the memory of the 206 men who gave their lives to those wars during the 20th century. Now next over here on the left, we have a mural that depicts the history of the interurban trolley system for El Reno. And the most interesting thing about the trolleys for me in El Reno is that El Reno had the only turntable for trolleys in this area. And so Oklahoma City, Guthrie, Norman, and Midwest City, Yukon, they had to bring their trolleys to El Reno in order to turn them around. And so we had daily service between those communities in El Reno just because we had the only turntable. Well, I never could find out why we were the only ones that had a turntable. We did. Now, coming up, these two buildings on the corner to our right, they're significant because in the early day El Reno, we were known as a saloon town. And we had over 30 saloons in El Reno, and probably might have had something to do with Mr. Golf. I showed you that golf house earlier. Well, Mr. Golf, he was the Anheuser-Busch distributor in El Reno, and he kept all the saloons plied with alcohol, I guess, during the time. And this building right here on our right on the corner, the tag agent, this was a saloon on the ground floor. And then Mr. Golf in his building back behind it, he had a saloon in the back of his building. And then more importantly, both of them had gambling houses upstairs. And so you'll notice on the second floor of both buildings, it's bricked over, but because they were gambling houses, if one of them got raided, they would throw a plank out across the second floor. And whichever one was getting raided, the patrons would cross that plank to go to the other gambling house. And you'll be able to see the bricked-in portion on the second floor if you look up there on the Anheuser-Busch building. I never was able to find out what happened to Mr. Golf after he left El Reno, but he probably continued to sell alcohol. Well, I'm going to have to stop the trolley here, see if I can get this guy to move. And of course, El Reno is originally known as the Crossroads of America because Highway 81 and Highway 66 intersect here in El Reno. We continue south here, we'll look off to our left to the Elks Lodge. It's a three-story building. It's kind of I call it a cream-colored or beige-colored Spanish-style building off to our left. This is the Elks Lodge, and that building was originally built as the headquarters for the Oklahoma people at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. And then so after the fair was over in St. Louis,